Mr. G.G. James.
So some of my coworkers have found out that I perform at open mics, and they tell me, "Oh, that must be really fun! Like a room full of comics, that must just be delightful." And I tell her, "Have you ever been in a room where 99% of the people there have contemplated suicide?" And she said, "That's what it's like." I said, "No, that's what it is. What it's like is this really absurd mating ritual where all of the worst animals showcase their shortcomings in hopes of attracting a mate." I mean, we all have shortcomings. For example, myself, right now, I'm getting to that level of chubby where a food stain on my shirt determines whether or not I'm fat. Like, that's the deciding factor. And the other night, I bought dinner at a pizza place. They had a special, 2 slices for $5. And so I go to get the special. The woman says, "Well, we cut the pizza twice on accident. I'm going to have to give you 4 slices. Like, you can't give me 4 slices of something. Like, that's really fat. So I'm resigned to my fate. I sit down. And then she brings it out on 2 plates. God damn it, you can't serve me on 2 fucking plates. Now I look fat and lonely. Like, I'm so lonely to the point where I'm eating my sorrows, or even worse, I got ditched, and now I'm eating the other person's food as some sort of karmic voodoo retribution. Then, I went to go use the bathroom in the pizza place. As soon as I come out, this little kid who had been sitting at the table next to me sees me and then runs. I'm such a horrifying eater, I make children run. And I'm not good with kids. Like, I took on a job tutoring kids because I think I'm smart. My student scored lower on her post-test than her pre-test. That's true. I mean, even if it wasn't true, just go with it, because you'll have more fun that way. But, so I still think I'm smart. I just think I subconsciously sabotage her because I was threatened by a 12-year-old. So, I work at a public school now. And I work in special ed. I love my job, I really do. I have to love my job, or I'm an asshole. But working in special ed is interesting right now because we're putting on the class play, and the class play happens to be Pocahontas. Already a little sensitive, but the message is basically, let's not be racist, let's love each other, get along. How do we teach them that message? By putting them in the most racially insensitive costumes since the Lone Ranger. Like, I know we're supposed to help these kids, assimilate into the rest of society, but the method shouldn't be like, you can be racist too, just like everyone else. Like, they're one coat of red face paint away from a Washington football team logo. But, like, my whole school is like that. It's not malicious racist, it's just clueless racist. On Friday we had Diversity Day, like, it was a huge empty gesture. But they ended the assembly with a Thomas Jefferson quote. A guy that owns slaves. Plural. He owned plural people. But, like, I can't really, take them to task for it because I'm Scandinavian, German, and English. Like, I have just all the oppression and massacres in my bloodline. Like, you name an atrocity, I'll name an ancestor. So, working in special ed, part of my job is to ride the bus at the end of the day. So I literally get paid to ride the short bus for a living. And I had a sub driver recently, and as soon as she gets on the bus, she vaguely mentions something about what happened the other day, clearly wanting me to ask. So I take the bait and said, "Well, what happened?" "Oh, my son's wife committed suicide." And then she starts crying. And I'm like, "I'm sorry." And in the midst of her sobbing, she goes, "Yeah, she pulled a Thelma and Louise. So she's being flippant while crying." I gotta give her credit. That's a reaction I've never seen before. So, I'm kind of, an awkward guy. I don't know what to do when somebody cries. Let alone when a woman cries. Let alone when a woman I don't know cries. Let alone when a woman I don't know cries and it's from a death in the family. Let alone when a woman I don't know cries from a death in the family that's a suicide. Let alone when a woman I don't know cries from a death in the family, it's a suicide, and I'm on a bus with nowhere to go for the next hour and a half and we're on our way to pick up a handicapped student. So, as she's talking about the funeral, she mentions everyone, all the relatives' last names. They all have the last name Sinatra. In the midst of her crying, she clearly wants to show off that she's related to Frank Sinatra. So I ask, are you related to Frank Sinatra? Anything to get her to stop crying. She then goes on to tell me the most horrifying portrait of unknown Sinatra family facts, like which Sinatras were giving each other coat hanger abortions in the basement. I don't want to know this. Like, I can't hear New York, New York anymore without just hearing, abort, abort. So then we finally pick up the kid. We drop them off, and by the time we get back to the school to drop off the bus, the conversation has moved on to her complaining about how we're no longer in California, we're in Mexico, and how they give all the foreigners chances, they don't give white people any chances, and how she would learn the language in a few months. And first of all, okay, it's always the people who can barely read in the first place who say how fast they can learn the language. Like, not fucking likely. So, she gets really racist by the end. So just to recap, the last hour of my day that day went suicide, Sinatra, abortion, race war! Have a nice day. Also, working in special ed, I'm in the nurse's office a lot. And there's a list in there. It's 101 things to do instead of drugs. All of those things are better on drugs. Number 1, right off the bat, listen to music. Okay, first off, drugs exist to make good music possible and bad music listenable. If we didn't have drugs, Black Sabbath wouldn't have created heavy metal. If Insane Clown Posse fans didn't have drugs, we wouldn't have Insane Clown Posse fans. Next item on the list is eat a great meal. Have you ever had ketchup and chocolate on rye bread? Delicious. The only other way I could eat something like this is if I was pregnant. And until science can find a way to satisfy my maternal instincts, I gotta stick with drugs. But then the list just gets really weird and stops making sense completely and says things like, do your best. Like, at drugs. Like, at this point, your kid has to do drugs in order to figure out how to manifest an abstract concept as an activity to do instead of drugs. But then my favorite one by far is kiss your parents. Alright, if lip locking with mom and dad gets to the point where it's an either-or activity, the healthier choice is the drugs, really. And I looked up the group that came up with this poster. Their main fundraising event every year is a Running with the Bulls marathon. I'll concede that drugs kill brain cells. You know what else kills brain cells? Hooves. And horns. Like, why did these psychos get a PSA? Like, where's my PSA? Like, hi, I'm G.G. James. I'm here to talk to your kids about drugs. They're not all bad. Drugs, that is. Your kids are fucking terrible. Alright, thank you.
G.G. James, everybody, doing it for the kids. I